When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: The Basement Blackout. User: StorX7232. Posted March 12, 1996.
The basement of my mom's house has always been creepy. For a long time, there was nothing I could specifically point to. I just never liked being down there. Of course, that's where the washer and dryer are, so over the years, I've managed to get over it a little bit so I can at least do my chores. This was fine until last summer when my mom married Ted and he moved in with his 3 daughters, Amber, Haley, and Jess. At that point, it was decided I should give my room to one of the girls and make the basement my new bedroom. I was pretty pissed about this, and I told them so, but Mom and Ted wouldn't hear it. The basement was officially mine. The basement's about twice the size of my room, and there's an accordion door dividing my part from the laundry area, so they said I should be happy, but it also barely gets any natural light, and there's the small issue of the persistent dread and the thing that lives in the dark. It's almost like being down here more makes whatever causes the uncomfortable feeling stronger, because even before I saw it, I had noticed things getting more intense. It was little stuff in the beginning. I'd turn all the lights off before I left for school, but when I came home, they'd all be on. I thought it was Mom, Ted, or the girls and told them to stop snooping in my room, but they all swore it wasn't them. I didn't believe them until it happened while they were away on an overnight trip for Jess and Amber's swim team. That night, I slept on the upstairs couch and didn't have any issues, but every now and then I swore I could hear noises coming up from the vent, furniture moving, paper crinkling, my computer powering up, even though I knew damn well I had left it off before coming upstairs. I don't know if whatever is down there enjoyed having the place to itself, was curious about me, or just wanted me to know it was down there. When everyone came home the following afternoon, I went back down there, and despite what I'd heard the night before, nothing was moved. I tried to just ignore everything and play video games. Alarm bells didn't start going off in my head until I was laying in bed trying to get to sleep. I heard the basement door open, followed by footsteps coming towards me. The accordion door softly opened, and the footsteps continued until they were right next to my bed. I could hear breathing, but didn't dare open my eyes. Mom hasn't come to check on me in bed since I was little, so even though I kept telling myself it was her, deep down, I knew it wasn't. Eventually, the breathing faded away, but I never heard any retreating footsteps. When I woke up in the morning, both the main basement door and my own were wide open, but at breakfast, no one would cop to coming downstairs. My mom had suggested it had all been a dream, completely brushing aside the fact I'd heard both doors opening. I was absolutely furious. Whatever she thought, I know the difference between dreams and reality. More than her, I think. Since then, the visits have become sporadic, but they reached a particularly terrifying new height the night before last. We had a huge storm blow in off Lake Erie, and it briefly knocked out the power to our town and the two on either side of it. That, in and of itself, isn't a major problem. I can live without the computer for a couple days if I have to, but it went out while I was downstairs. One moment, I was watching the Cubs-Marlins game on WGN. The next, everything was black. And I mean pitch black. If I hadn't been frozen to the spot by a surge of pure terror, I wouldn't have been able to see my hand in front of my face. Upstairs, I could hear the girls squealing about the power going out and Ted comforting them. Closer to me, I began to hear breathing. Mom was at work, but even if she hadn't been, I knew better. This was whatever lived in the basement, and it had complete control over me. A chill spread across my body, and I felt goosebumps rising. The breathing came closer and closer until it sounded like it was an inch from my ear. I never felt any actual air moving across my face, but the breathing pressed back and forth over my entire body as if I was being inspected. It returned to my face, and I imagined that whatever it was staring directly into my eyes. I gripped the tattered armrests of my chair and tried to keep calm. Whatever this thing was, it was interested in me and had no intention of leaving as long as it had the cover of darkness. Thankfully, it wasn't for long, as the lights came on a few seconds later. In the split second between the lights turning on and the thing in the darkness going back to wherever it comes from, I saw something. It's difficult to describe, but I had the fleeting impression of limbs. Not like you and I have, but more like an octopus's tentacles. It happened so fast, but I'm certain that's what I saw. I'm going to college in the fall, so it looks like I'll be sleeping with the lights on until then. It's going to be a long summer.
Subject: Meeting the Shadow Man. User: 12 Baso Point. Posted September 21st, 1995.
Have you ever seen a 12-foot storm surge in real life? I have. Imagine a wall, but it's made of water and coming towards you over and over. Nothing can stop it, nothing can slow it down. All you can do is watch while everything you've ever known is torn up by the roots and tossed around like a giant's toy. Before last year, I didn't know any of this. My wife Carol and I were living in Keaton Beach, Florida. Same as we had since getting married in '84, and same as my parents had since forever. When the news started talking about the storm of the century, my dad just snorted and said it was going to blow north toward Georgia and the Carolinas, same as it always did. In his defense, the weatherman was saying the same thing, so I was inclined to listen. That was a mistake. The first surge smashed our home's drywall, exposing its 2x4 skeleton, and it was those same 2x4s we clung to as wave after wave of brackish water washed in. When night finally came, it was so cold we started dropping below the water because it was warmer than the air. Carol and I made it, but after the storm had passed and help had come, we found out my parents were not so lucky. Once we dealt with insurance and probate on my parents' estate, we picked up what few of our possessions had survived the storm and decamped to Houston to be closer to Carol's family. The first few weeks in Houston were chaotic because we didn't really have a solid place to land. Carol's parents let us stay in their basement while we shopped for a rental place, but they're not easy people to get along with, and so we ended up making a decision faster than we ordinarily would have. If we hadn't been rushed, I like to think that we'd have noticed something felt off in here. On the surface, the townhouse we moved into is lovely. It's a brand new 2-story building in Montrose, which is what you might call an up-and-coming neighborhood. It's nicer than it used to be by a lot, but people still give us a look when we tell them where we live. On our first night there, I assumed I felt weird because of the association with what Montrose used to be. Whatever it was, it kept me up, staring at the bedroom ceiling until 3 a.m. Just after 3, I gave up on trying to sleep and went downstairs for a glass of milk. On the first floor, there was a long hallway that led from the front door to the kitchen. As I was walking down the hallway, I felt a sudden urge to turn and look behind me. When I did, I was startled to see what looked like the shadow of a tall man moving down the hallway close behind me. I froze. As he moved down the hallway, he seemed to radiate a small aura of darkness around him, casting a shadow in all directions. That aura blotted out the light on the floor, the walls, and the ceiling in a murky circle around him as he moved toward me. Just as he reached where I was standing, he blinked out of existence. After he was gone, I stood there for a moment before checking every door in the house, all of which were locked. Then, I went back upstairs to bed and curled up next to Carol. I had no frame of reference for such an experience, and even now, after having had it a few times, I still don't. The next day, my uneasiness was as strong as ever, but I made the decision to keep the story to myself, and we started unpacking. The Rockets were in the NBA Finals the same month as we moved in, and when they finally won the title, Houston turned into one giant party. Usually Carol and I stay away from bars, but after everything we'd been through, we were looking for something to celebrate, and so we made our way over to Richmond Avenue. It was maybe 3 or 4 in the morning by the time we got home, relatively sober but pleasantly exhausted. Carol fell asleep on the couch, splayed out as to occupy the maximum surface area, so I started to schlep myself up the stairs to the bedroom. Halfway up the stairs, the shadow man came around the corner, going the other direction. This time, he seemed very aware of my presence as he halted and stood still in front of me. Even though I couldn't make out any features on his face, I could feel a sense of shock and fear coming from him. He turned and fled upstairs, moving away from me as fast as he could. I went back downstairs and pushed Carol over enough so I could join her on the sofa. In the morning, we were still crashed out in the same spot, avoiding the mess of boxes surrounding us when Carol dropped a bomb. She turned to me and asked, "Hey, have you seen the shadow man?" She went on to say she'd seen the shadow of a tall man walking along the hallway to the kitchen, but he disappeared when she tried to touch him. Yes, touch him. I told her I'd seen him, but she was crazy because I couldn't even move, let alone try and put a hand on the thing. Talking about this gave us an excuse not to unpack, so we spent hours picking apart our experiences with this tall man. Neither of us felt threatened by him, and there was no immediate danger, but we were also not impressed by the notion of sharing our home with whatever that thing is. It's been a few weeks, and we are still here, but we're also actively looking for a house to buy that doesn't have unexpected roommates.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr. with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.